curious about other topics that you're interested in. You serve on a lot of important committees, including the House Judiciary Committee. So I also do want to ask, is there anything that, being in Congress has really surprised you? In your first year, I think a lot of people don't really know what the experience is like for a congressman. So I'm just curious if there's anything that has been a little bit different than you would have thought, and also the work that you're doing on House Judiciary. I know there's a big hearing coming up tomorrow for House oversight in the Biden impeachment probe. So if you could talk a little bit about where that stands as well.
Sure. Last year I flew on 118 separate flights. Lots and lots of travel back and forth from here to Houston. Mostly United, actually.
Oh, okay.
We have 6 United flights per day. I'm very, very fortunate. It's a 2.5-hour flight direct every time. I'm very, very blessed to have that. Imagine if you lived in, my wife is from small town Iowa. It would take all day to get back to Iowa. But for me, it's a 2.5-hour flight, lots of flights. And it was my goal to make sure that my family and my children knew who I was, even though this was my first year in Congress. My first week in Congress, my son was born. And as a combat veteran, military guy, I recall many a day where we would return home after a long deployment, and there were a lot of kids that didn't recognize their fathers. And for me, my family is first, and I wanted to make sure that my little boy knew who his father was when I walked in the room, and I wasn't going to be a stranger. And so, mission accomplished. Little Willie knows exactly who I am, and I love every second of it. But that was a challenge for me to make sure that I kept that priority first to get back home. So the travel was quite shocking. The other thing is this, just like I said earlier, we have divided government right now. Republicans, we don't have the Senate and we don't have the presidency. And so it's up to our office to find ways to cut through the gridlock that may not be from a legislative standpoint. And that means signing on the letters here and there. That means putting pressure on certain agencies when projects are done well. That means us getting engaged and getting on the phone and making phone calls to the right people to move things along. That means procuring projects for my district back at home. And quite frankly, it's been one of the best years of my entire life. I love this job. But you cannot allow yourself to get bogged down by how divided we are right now, because that's the nature of the beast. Not much is going to happen right now in this country from a legislative standpoint. We have a 2-seat majority in the House, and you don't have the Senate, you don't have the presidency. So focus on what you can control, and that's what I've been able to do.
Well, I think a lot of people might hear that, and when you say divided government, some people from the outside might think that the Republican Party itself is a little bit divided right now. Is that a fair assessment?
The whole country is divided right now. And to answer your question, of course, when you have, our Speaker of the House, initially Kevin McCarthy took him 15 votes to become the Speaker. that's by definition divided. And you only have at that time, a 4-seat majority. Now with retirements, a 2-seat majority. And so, yeah, I would totally agree with that. But as you can see too, the country's divided. And I tell people this a lot too. You get the government you vote for. I think that the American public wanted some gridlock right now. And if you look at the way our Constitution was written and how it was set up, and our founding fathers, sometimes gridlock is good. And I think there are some benefits that we have seen to some of the infighting and some of what a lot of people would say the bickering amongst us here in Washington. That's actually a part of the process that is the American experiment. And while it might be messy, it's better than anywhere else in the entire world.